guys, welcome back to another episode of the Armchair Crew Chief. This one's coming out a little bit later than normal. A few things happened this week, just feeling a little bit under the weather. But just want to come out here and let's go ahead and get started. We have finished off our first race in the Cup Series playoffs, and we are one race away from the Xfinity playoffs. So last week we had Labor Day. Hope everybody had a good one. And we had Darlington. Wasn't able to watch the Xfinity race that well, so we're just going to go ahead and kind of go through that pretty quick. We'll give you the basic rundowns that we normally do. And starting off with the lineup, John Hunter, once again, strong running, got the pole. Denny Hamlin was one of the many Cup Series drivers, and I'm still not a big fan of Cup Series drivers running in Xfinity, especially towards later the year when guys are fighting for playoff spots because you're taking points away if they're running up front, which most of the time they're going to be running up higher anyway. So then you had Justin Allgaier, Cole Custer, Sam Mayer rounded out your top five on your lineup. Stage 1 finish, John Hunter, Denny Hamlin, Kyle Larson, another Cup Series regular, was up there running. He was finished third in Stage 1. Stage 2, John Hunter, Austin Hill, Kyle Larson, Denny Hamlin fourth. We started having our regulars come up and start battling. And from what I was picking up on, just seeing some ins and outs of what happened, that's pretty much what ended up happening. You had two guys battling it out, and then at the end, they had a green flag restart, and unfortunately, Denny Hamlin came out and won that race. He was saying his car was better on long runs. Parker Kligerman, once again, I think he's been doing well. He struggled this race. He had a spin out off of Sam Mayer's bumper, and that's what ended up causing the green flag or green white checker restart over time. So that's what kind of threw Denny Hamlin back into the mix. So the final standings on this race were from top five up: Josh Berry, Cole Custer, John Hunter Nemechek, Austin Hill, Denny Hamlin. It was one of those things that was just rough to see everything. I don't know what to make of it. I don't like the Cup Series guys running late in the season for Xfinity. I know they can go in there every so often. Kyle Busch did a lot, but I'm not sold on it. Let's just put it that way. So let's go ahead and move on to Cup Series qualifying. Toyota's top 3 spot: Christopher Bell, Denny Hamlin, Tyler Reddick. Some of the other guys notable in there. Blaney was 4th, Keselowski 5th, Logano 6th. Truex was 31st, if I remember correctly. He spun out a lot. Austin Dillon 28th, Ross Chastain 27th. Then moving on into the race, long race, one of the longest ones that we have. Stage 1 ended up, so you had Kyle Busch and Martin Truex Jr. and also Larson and some of these other guys that had to start from the back and march their way up. And they methodically did in the beginning of the race. Hamlin ended up getting Stage 1, Tyler Reddick second. But as I was saying, you had the likes of Truex 18th. He started 31st. Kyle Busch had to go to the rear of the field. He finished 17th in that stage. So those guys were a lot of the movers and shakers. Stage 2, Denny Hamlin, Kyle Larson. Larson went all the way up there. Truex got hurt at the end of these stages because of a loose wheel. He had a loose right rear, and we'll also talk about how that ended up hurting Denny Hamlin as well. Denny Hamlin got a loose wheel in the second stage, or third stage, I should say. which just threw him out of contention. Tyler Reddick had a really strong running throughout the whole race pretty much. Harvick was doing really well. Just watching him run. We had some butting of heads, which I hear everybody pointing fingers between, like, you had, excuse me, you had butting of the heads between Daniel Suarez and Alex Bowman, which has been going on for a while. Apparently Bowman's like, his crew chief is giving me the finger all the time and so on. So they don't like each other. Obviously, it's one of those things. It's weird because it's Chevy. I mean, granted, it's Hendrick and it's Trackhouse, and Rick Hendrick doesn't like Ross Chastain. And I think you can solely blame, not solely, but you can put a lot of blame on why Ross Chastain's not doing so well on how Rick Hendrick handled the situation. Not saying it was right or wrong, but that mentality, that mental wrap around hurt Ross in my mind, because it had to make him change his mental thinking the way he was driving, which, yeah, he was rough and aggressive, but he didn't intentionally hurt people, didn't do anything like that. So I think by changing that mindset, they hurt Ross Chastain, which, in my opinion, he was racing, he was doing fine. But going back to the Bowman thing that happened, Alex Bowman threw a big aggressive block on Daniel Suarez. Then Suarez tried to come back up to pass him. Well, Bowman threw another block on him. And then he ended up getting caught and put in the wall. I would put the blame probably 95% on Bowman on that wreck. The block going down, okay, you can do that. The block coming back up, I think he should have not done or not been as aggressive. And then you could also argue that maybe that's where Daniel should have went back down and passed him, but they were getting close to the end. So I don't know. Bowman says it was, obviously he's going to say it's Daniel's fault. Daniel called him out and said he was being pretty dumb. I kind of agree with that. I'm not a big Bowman fan anyway, but I think that move that Bowman did was kind of dumb. Denny says it was Daniel's fault, which I think Denny's full of crap a lot. Yeah, he can race the car and do all that, but a lot of the things he says I disagree with wholeheartedly. Then you have Dale Jr., who I think he's probably the most level-headed out of everybody that's talked about this, where he's pretty much said, yeah, I think Alex has some fault in this. And, he's had... I think that's good for the sport, because you got somebody like that knows everything going on, and just he comes out and says pretty much the truth. I think. I think he does. I think he's in the right where he says that Daniel probably had some issues with it and caused a little bit of the wreck, but Alex can't walk away from this fault free, and that's pretty ignorant on his part if he thinks he should. Apparently, I think it was Denny was saying, going back and looking at everything, Alex did the same thing to Ross like a few laps before, but then Ross was able to get around him. So just looking at all that and how that happened, yeah, it stunk. Seeing that kind of wreck, but you got to see that stuff. We had a stoppage because getting close to dusk, I think it was turn 3 and 4, the inside lights that light up the upper end of the track, so the high side of the track, outside of the track, weren't coming on. So they ended up wasting laps, which I think NASCAR is very good at, and they need to fix this. They will waste so many laps under caution for no reason when they should have, like this one, they should have red flagged it. They finally did. But at the same time, you wasted like 4 or 5 laps because you were sitting there going around and you couldn't figure out what was going on. So I think that was pretty stupid on NASCAR. I'm very critical on NASCAR on their cautions. Either they throw it for something silly, or something big happens, they don't throw it, or somewhere where they just keep letting them run under caution and it wastes TV time, race time. And I think that a big part of that is, commercials. A lot of people have been very critical of NBC and Fox for how many commercials they're putting and how much of the race you're actually watching on television. I still think that these guys should be going to a pay scale and do a stream service. Run a premium. You have, NFL's got their thing for an ungodly amount of money to watch all the games. NFL Sunday Ticket. MLB's got something similar. I think theirs is more within reason to watch all the games, and they have a lot more games than NFL does. And then you have NASCAR that's running, for all intents and purposes, three races, and you can't put a streaming service out there. I think they need to work on that with Amazon, work on that with, somebody like that, Apple TV, somebody that they can get a paid, you still stream it on TV or put it on TV for people that don't want to pay for it with commercials, but have a premium service that you can take the commercials away. I think that would be very beneficial. And I'm not saying, because I could hear like Adele Jr. like, well, you can't, we got to have a break too. And okay, yeah, you still have your break, but these TV guys are still following, the cameras are still following. They're not just going to stop because they're going to lose the rhythm on following these cars around. Do that. Or have a multi-car feed on TV, not just on the internet. The internet thing is awesome, but I think they need to expand that out to more streaming services and more of a broadcast style, not a chase cam or a battle cam. So let's keep going on. I kind of went off on a tangent here in the middle of the race. So at the end of the race, nobody can end up catching him. Larson ended up winning the race. Tyler Reddick, strong. Chris Buescher, my goodness, this dude has been on fire for the past, month and a half. So he ended up finishing third. Byron fourth, Chastain fifth, Keselowski sixth, and Bubba seventh. Chase Elliott eighth, Ryan Blaney ninth, Eric Jones 10th. Going back and some more notables that happened. Carson Hocevar, really strong showing. I would give him, this is his first time in a Cup car. I know it's not. I know he ran the 7 car for Corey LaJoie. But to actually get in a car and run it and know that he was going in there, not kind of like a last minute deal, he did really good. He finished 17th. Truex 18th. Some people that got hurt in this, I'm trying to find where he finished so I can talk a little bit more about it, was Kevin Harvick. I'm not a big Kevin Harvick fan, but that dude has been pretty consistent, middle of the road. He finished 19th. So I think he should have finished a lot earlier than that. Also, if you notice, Denny Hamlin wasn't up there, and he pretty much led a ton of laps. I don't know what the exact number was. He had a pit road woe in terms of stacking pennies. Loose tire, just like Truex. Truex and Denny's crew members hurt them this year. The car for Truex hadn't been best, so I think he might have had a top 15 car. But the crew members, you can't have those mistakes, and that is unacceptable. Hopefully Coach went in there and, I'm not going to say laid into him, but kind of pep talked them. I mean, the dude's a former NFL coach, won in Super Bowls. So let's see what he can do and pep talk him up. I feel for Kevin Harvick. As I said, I'm not a big Kevin Harvick fan, but he got, for lack of a better term, screwed. The caution came out, and he was maybe 3 car lengths from hitting pit road. And then as soon as that happens, they close it. I think they need to have, and this has been the talk of the week of what they need to do with this. I think they need to have a little bit of a leeway that if you're already you can't get off, you're almost to that commitment line, 2 car lengths, 3 car lengths, make something stick, a defined limit, not just the line, because he couldn't just slam on the brakes and go back up. And if he drives through, he's hurting himself even more. So he was danged if you do, danged if you don't. So he went ahead and pitted, and I think it worked out better than serving the passer. They need to fix that. NASCAR cannot penalize a guy for like that. But I think what people are missing in this specific situation is, I think they have every right to say that Kevin Harvick shouldn't have been penalized. I agree with them. Why was Tyler Reddick in the high groove trying to slam on his brakes to get down to pit road when he knew good and well that he wasn't going to be able to hit it when he heard that Harvick was going in? He's the one that caused that spin. I like Reddick. He's a pretty cool dude. I saw him and kind of met him at Daytona. He caused that wreck that hurt Harvick. I think Harvick would have been up there, top 5 finish. I don't know if he would have won the race, but I think top 5 finish if it wasn't for Tyler Reddick trying to slam on his brakes to get down there. And he realized it and he kept going and kept straight. But he's the one that caused Ryan Newman to spin because he slammed on his brakes. We need to talk more about that and why wasn't that looked into. That's my issue with what happened on that Harvick penalty. And I called it was a penalty because he ended up hitting. One, the rule needs to be adjusted to allow for, you can't call that commitment line because they're going to call a commitment line violation if he would have turned right back up, if he could have. So they need to make another line. Once you hit that first line, which is 4 car lengths before pit road, and you can do it on these tracks like this, then if a caution comes out and you're in between the commitment line and the pre-commitment line, we'll call it, for lack of a better term, then you're not going to be penalized if you come in a pit because you're in, call it a grace zone. That needs to be looked at from what's going on with NASCAR. I think NASCAR looks at that. NASCAR's looking at penalizing more Xfinity because so many people are violating and getting penalties through inspections that they're making them steeper on that. Well, then open your brain and look at Cup Series and what happened here. It doesn't happen a lot, but when it does, it's detrimental to the driver and the team. So that's ended up what happened on there. Again, Larson won the race. He cemented himself into going into the next round of the playoffs. So let's go ahead and look at everything going on with that, and then we'll dive into a little bit of our news that we have. Let's go ahead and start off with Xfinity and talk about their playoffs. Since they have one more race, we're going into Kansas this weekend. One more race until playoffs start for them. So we have some guys fighting for some spots. We have Daniel Hemrick, Riley Hurst, Parker Kligerman, and Brandon Jones. I think Brandon Jones isn't going to make it. So when you start looking at everything, it's gonna be interesting to see what happens because Sheldon Creed, he's got some playoff points, but his regular season points aren't that strong. I think what's going to happen, unless Daniel Hemrick hurts himself really bad, which we'll see what happens. Some news came out yesterday about Hemrick and his team. I think it's going to be a battle between the 98 and 48. Riley Hurst, who's on the in, and Parker Kligerman on the out in the 48. That's going to be your battle to see what happens. Parker's been really strong, but he hasn't had that final push. Can he get it at Kansas? We'll have to see and look what happens. That's going to be interesting to see from there, and that's our big push. I honestly think John Hunter, I would put money on John Hunter winning the championship. Austin Hill has been really strong, but John Hunter has been stronger as of late. Moving on to Cup Series, we have our bubble guys here. Bubba Wallace, Kevin Harvick, Stenhouse, and McDowell. McDowell had gotten into an accident. He got hurt. Stenhouse, I don't think he has a strong enough car this year. He got on just because he won the he got on because he won the 500. I don't know if he has enough to just keep going. Bubba, I don't know. I'm looking past the fact that I don't like his arrogance. I don't like that he looks like an a-hole, acts like an a-hole. And I'm talking about the way he acts on TV and his face and just his demeanor. He thinks that his crap doesn't stink, to be honest, on there. And I think he needs to be kind of I wish he could kind of calm down a little bit on that, because I think he's a good guy. He's got good intentions and everything, but just the way he acts and some things that have happened in the past, I don't think that. Anyway, Harvick, we'll see what happens with Harvick. I mean, these guys, we're floating around tight, and we have 2 races. We have Kansas and Bristol left. Kansas is, I mean, you could call that a snooze fest. It's another mile and a half. We have so many stinking mile and a halves. They act all the same. I think Chevrolet's going to end up winning that. Probably Byron. Let it surprise me. I know Denny's won it in the past. I know Bubba's won it in the past. I don't know. Let it surprise me. I'd like to see a Toyota go out there. You know, you guys know I'm a Truex fan, so I'd like to see him win. But I think it's going to be maybe a Byron. Maybe Busch kind of kicks it back off. I don't think Ford's going to win, but I won't let it out. I won't count it out. So I think we're going to get more clarity after this race, because Bristol's one of those. It's a crapshoot. It's like a super speedway. It's a crapshoot. And that's why people like it, because you beat and bang and bounce off everything, and it's fun. So looking more into this and everything, we'll see what happens. As I said, Larson is cemented in. I think, Byron, Reddick, Buescher, Hamlin are pretty much in right now, unless something happens. I would even argue Truex and Busch. Moving on, our cutoff next is going to be the round of 8 after this one. So you're looking at, let's say it happened now, Keselowski's your one guy, and these guys are close because of playoff points and so on. So I like to see what happens going forward with this race. Kansas will be a telltale sign on what happens. Bristol, I think, is just a crapshoot, and we'll go from there. A lot of playoff racing to go until we hit our next stage. So moving forward, we'll jump right into our news and what's going on with that. And news. Denny Hamlin got an extension with Gibbs, multi-year. He's going to be there. Toyota's going to be with 2311, so that's a multifaceted idea with that. Daniel Hemrick is going to be switching over to the 10 car. He's going to be continuing his championship drive, but just in the 10 car, not the 11. I'm not fully comprehending why, I guess, the team, but why not move the team over? I don't know. Anyway, he's going to be moving over to the 10 car. I think Derek Kraus, if I remember correctly, is going to be running the 11 then. Derek Kraus will run for Colleague at Kansas. Carson Hocevar is going to be running again in the 42 going forward. Big news. That's not really big news from the 42 for next year is John Hunter has now been confirmed by Legacy to be the successor to Noah Gragson. Tinfoil hat once again. Put it on. Legacy kicked Noah Gragson out because of what happened with them switching to Toyota. Not the meme. I'm not going to say the meme's right or wrong. This is not the platform to talk about that part of it. It's just, and I'll say it again for the 100th time on this podcast, it's just very convenient that it magically popped up 3 years after it was posted, after it was liked by Gragson. 3 years after. Why not during Junior Motorsports Watch? But anyway, I think Jimmy Johnson was trying to get Gragson out of the picture so they can move to Toyota and have a Toyota driver in that car. I think Gragson comes back full fury. I know it's going to take some time for him to build up some reputation and get everything back, but I think he comes back, and I hope that he stays strong on all that. And I hope everything works for him. Moving forward, we'll see what happens. 2311 staying with Toyota, I think that's a good move. I think, they were going to go wherever Denny went. And with that being said, I'm glad they're sticking with Toyota. I like to see Toyota grow. I really want to see another manufacturer in there. I don't know if that will happen anytime soon. But I also want to see some of these rule changes come into effect. I want to see, they're still fighting and arguing. I don't have exact details, but I know that they are fighting with the charter system. The owners are voting and fighting the Frances and the ownership of NASCAR on charter. They want to keep the charter. If I remember correctly, NASCAR wants to get rid of the charter. And, I think that would be great for the sport to get rid of the charter, because you have to go in there and fight. You're not guaranteed. Now, guarantee your spot if you won or whatever, if you're in the playoffs, but or make some hybrid. Let's put it that way. Let's do it like that. I think that would be better. But I'm not going to bore you guys on that. We're not going to go too much detail on that. Harrison Burton he wants to come back and race. I think it's pretty much a done deal that he's coming back to Wood Brothers. So that's another silly season move that you could call that's going around. Once again, I was saying stricter inspection process for Xfinity Series because they've had so many people come out and fail inspections. Starting next weekend, because they just announced it. I think it was yesterday or the day before. If you fail pre-race inspection 2 times, they're going to eject a crew member. It used to be 3 times you failed. NASCAR's getting tired of these guys trying to push the limits. Hey, NASCAR, let them push the limits. These are rules. Don't let them break them. But, or I guess you could do what they're saying. Give them less strikes before they're out. So that's the big change going on here. We're moving on to Kansas. And Kansas, another 1.5 mile type track. It's going to be, I don't know what to say about it. We have trucks again, practice qualifying Friday, 3:35, 4:05. That's not going to be on TV. The Menards race starts at 6. That'll be on FS1. Following the Menards race at 9 Eastern, Truck Series will be on race FS1 MRN. And then Saturday, we have practice and qualifying. Everything on practice and qualifying is going to be on USA for both Xfinity and Cup. Xfinity practice and qualifying will be 10:05 and 10:35. And then noon and 12:45 will be Cup Series. Again, USA and MRN is the radio. Then we move over to NBC, the main channel, for the Xfinity race. That'll be starting at 3 Eastern. And then Sunday on USA, we have 3 Eastern, the Cup Series race. So let's see what happens going forward. I think we're going to have more of a cementing plan on what happens after this race. Again, Bristol's one of those. It's a crapshoot. And we'll go from there and see what happens. So, hope you guys like this one. Sorry it's a little bit short, a little bit scatterbrained. It's been a rough week. I've been under the weather, dealing with allergies, temperature change. So, once again, I appreciate you guys for listening. Please share this podcast, and we'll catch you next week. Have a good one.